You are following all the prescribed steps. You visualize each morning, script your aspirations, repeat affirmations, and meditate. You endeavor to maintain alignment, speak in high vibrations, and tell yourself you trust the process. Yet, a look around reveals a reality that is painfully familiar. The months change, but the emotions remain the same. New intentions yield identical outcomes. You question why, despite all this work. The relationships you attract are echoes of the ones you're trying to leave behind. Your financial state continually resets, and regardless of your efforts, your inner world vacillates between hope and a quiet sense of despair. Beneath it all, a question reverberates with increasing intensity. What am I doing wrong? Why does my life feel like an unbreakable loop? Here is the truth. The issue is not you. It is not a reflection of your worth, potential, intelligence, or even your effort. It is your frequency. The quantum field does not respond to exertion. It does not react to the intensity of your desires. It does not reward the number of hours you spend visualizing, the conviction in your affirmations, or the amount of positivity you attempt to generate. The quantum field responds to one thing and one thing only: the signal you consistently and unconsciously broadcast beneath the surface of everything you think, say, and do. It is the vibration you embody when you are not performing, when you are not actively trying to manifest. You are not stuck because you are failing at manifestation. You are stuck because you haven't yet ceased vibrating as the version of yourself you have already outgrown. Until that vibration is dissolved, the field will faithfully continue to reflect it back to you, not out of malice, but out of perfect, impartial coherence. The quantum field is neutral. It does not label your desires as good or bad, right or wrong. It simply mirrors the energetic reality you hold to be true. This is the reason why, no matter how many vision boards you create, guided meditations you follow, or books you read, your life can feel uncannily the same. It is not personal. It is physics. There is a law you were not taught in school, the law of vibrational repetition. Whatever your subconscious mind deems as safe, it will recreate, not because it aligns with your highest good, but because it is familiar. The quantum field interprets this familiarity as a direct command. It perceives, this is the feeling you experience most often. This is your expectation. This is the version of reality you have stabilized within. Very well, I will continue to reinforce that. And so it does, again and again. You do not manifest from your vision board. You manifest from your nervous system. You manifest from the energy you emit when you are not consciously focused on manifestation, when you are simply living, reacting, processing stress, handling disappointment, celebrating or grieving. You manifest from the tone of your thoughts late at night, from how you feel about yourself when things go awry, and from the energy you carry in the spaces between your conscious efforts. This is the mechanism behind repeating cycles. Even when external behaviors change, the habits, routines, and rituals, the inner vibrational baseline remains untouched. You can declare abundance 100 times a day, but if your body is still physiologically wired for scarcity, the field does not register abundance. It registers lack and responds accordingly. Most people fail to realize that the field is not punishing them. It is simply reflecting their core signal with perfect accuracy. However, the part that is often missed is that this is not a sign of being broken or unworthy. It is not even proof that you are bad at manifesting. It is a mirror, a precise, unflinching, vibrational mirror, and mirrors do not lie. They only reflect. What if, instead of pursuing a new reality with more techniques and tools, you focused on becoming coherent enough to allow the field to reflect something different? What if the real work is not about adding more on top, but about dissolving the old, looping frequencies that operate like an invisible code in the background of your life, dictating your experiences without your consent? You cannot out-affirm your energetic baseline. You cannot manifest a higher reality while being anchored to the emotional patterns of your past. The loop persists not because of insufficient effort, but because you are still repeating the same vibrational signature. You perform the same morning routine, but with the same undercurrent of fear. You recite new mantras, but with the same residual self-doubt. The field detects this as the primary signal and reflects it with relentless consistency. The field is not resisting manifesting your desires, it is reflecting your identity. And identity is not what you claim it is. It is what your frequency declares it to be, the sum total of what you expect, allow, and tolerate when the rituals are over and it is just you and your energy. To stop repeating the same reality, you must stop repeating the same frequency. And to do that, you must become exquisitely aware of the emotional, mental, and vibrational loops you have been unconsciously running. Until you interrupt that loop, you are not manifesting a new life. You are merely redecorating the old one. But once you become aware of the loop, once you can name it, observe it, and feel it without collapsing into it, you can choose to step out. That is the essence of quantum shifting. Not forcing a new reality into existence, but becoming a new frequency so that the reality matching it can collapse effortlessly around you. You now grasp that what repeats is not your destiny, but your frequency. But how does this mechanism actually function beneath the surface? It begins with a core principle. Your subconscious mind is not engineered to make you happy. It is engineered to keep you safe. Safe does not equate to fulfilled or expanded. Safe means familiar. Your subconscious is a repository for the sum of all your experiences, beliefs, and traumas, wired together through years of reinforcement. These patterns establish what neuroscientists refer to as neural pathways, grooves of thought and feeling that become automatic and unconscious. Your nervous system then memorizes these pathways as your default settings for responding to stress, love, money, and rejection. This collection of patterns forms a vibrational blueprint that your body emits constantly. The quantum field, in turn, responds to this blueprint, not to your conscious intentions. It tunes into your dominant vibrational signature, the vast majority of which is emitted unconsciously from your body's automatic responses. This is why change feels so challenging. When you attempt to manifest something new, you are often operating from the same subconscious program that created the reality you wish to escape. It is like trying to write a new story while the old script runs in the background, auto-correcting every new word back to what is familiar. In the quantum model, reality exists as a field of infinite possibilities, each as a wave of probability. These probabilities only collapse into physical form through observation, intention, and, most critically, coherence. Coherence is the alignment of your energy across all levels: mental, emotional, and physical. Without it, your signal is scattered and weak, incapable of overriding a long-standing, ingrained frequency. Most people get stuck here, attempting to force change from the level of conscious thought, unaware that their subconscious programming is broadcasting the old signal at a much greater amplitude. Neuroscience confirms that up to 95% of our daily thoughts and behaviors are unconscious habits. This means only 5% of your energy is actively creating something new, while 95% is reinforcing what already exists. This is why you attract the same experiences despite your best efforts. Your conscious focus may be on your desired reality, but your embodied frequency is still entangled with the reality you are trying to leave. The quantum field responds not to what you want, but to what you are. And what you are is largely determined by the subconscious patterns you have not yet interrupted. Your body, as Dr. Joe Dispenza says, is the subconscious mind. It remembers the feelings and stress responses of your current identity. When you try to shift, your body resists, not to harm you, but because it has been conditioned to stay within known parameters. It craves predictability and generates thoughts and impulses to pull you back into the loop. This is the mechanism of quantum repetition. Subconscious programming creates a consistent vibrational field. The quantum field mirrors it as reality, and your experiences reinforce the programming. This feedback loop is endless, until you become aware of it, observe it without judgment, and deliberately introduce a new frequency. But you cannot brute force your way out of this with affirmations alone. The quantum shift requires true coherence. It requires tuning your entire being to a new frequency, and this is where most people stop, on the very edge of transformation. But you can learn to recognize the patterns and broadcast a new signal so coherently that the field must reflect a new experience. Now that you understand how the loop is sustained by your subconscious programming and vibrational frequency, let's discuss the precise moment where everything either changes or repeats. Most people fail to recognize this moment because it does not announce itself clearly. It doesn't appear with a sign indicating that you are about to break the cycle. Instead, it often arrives disguised as frustration, confusion, or the subtle feeling that nothing is moving. Herein lies the paradox, that sensation of stagnation, the rising tension just before you are about to give up is often the exact moment you are closest to a quantum shift. Before any significant transformation, there is almost always resistance, not because the transformation is wrong, but because it requires energy to move from one vibrational state to another. It necessitates destabilizing the old identity before the new one can solidify. That destabilization can feel as though everything is falling apart, as if all your efforts have been futile. In reality, what is occurring is that the old frequency is beginning to dissolve, and your entire system, mind, body, and energy is recalibrating to hold something new. One of the most common indicators that you are on the verge of a quantum shift is the re-emergence of your oldest patterns with unexpected intensity. You might find yourself reverting to old behaviors, attracting similar challenges, or experiencing the same emotional triggers you believed you had overcome. This is not a failure, it is a flare-up, the final expression of a frequency that senses it is about to lose its dominance over your life. The subconscious does not cede control quietly. It will test your resolve and tempt you back into the familiar, presenting you with opportunities to choose the old self, because that is its primary function. This is why many people unconsciously sabotage themselves right before a breakthrough, not out of weakness, but because they are unprepared for the emotional discomfort of abandoning what is known, even when it is painful. Another key sign is a feeling of being emotionally stretched, as if you are standing between two versions of yourself. One part of you yearns for expansion and new possibilities, while the other clings tightly to the safety of the patterns that have defined your existence. This internal tug-of-war is a hallmark of the quantum shift process. It is uncomfortable, but it is also a sign that you are precisely where you need to be. At this juncture, most people make one of two choices. They retreat, defaulting back to their old vibrational baseline and repeating the same reality, or they lean into the discomfort, recognizing it as a signal that they are on the threshold of something profoundly different. The choice you make here determines whether you continue to loop or whether you shift. There is also a physiological marker that often accompanies this moment. Your body will resist. You might experience fatigue, tension, anxiety, or even mild symptoms of illness as your nervous system processes the energetic dissonance between your old identity and the new frequency you are beginning to inhabit. Your body has been conditioned for the stress and limitations of your previous reality. Moving beyond that conditioning requires an adjustment period, a kind of vibrational detox. It is crucial to understand that this discomfort is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. On the contrary, it is evidence that you are successfully disrupting the loop. If you interpret this as failure, you will retreat. If you recognize it as a necessary part of the process, you will persist and shift. When an old fear surfaces, instead of defaulting to old behaviors, you can pause. You can recognize the fear not as a truth, but as a residue of your previous frequency. You can choose in that moment to breathe, to regulate your nervous system, and to stay present with the discomfort without collapsing into it. That is the moment of quantum shift. Not when you force a new reality, but when you stop reacting to the old one. So how do you shift? Not in theory, but now, in the space between the old self and the one you are ready to become. The answer may be surprising, as our conditioning tells us to push harder and do more. But in the quantum model, creation does not occur through force. It occurs through frequency, and frequency is not something you do, it is something you are. To shift into a new reality, you do not need to create the future you want. you need to tune into it, because in the quantum field, that future already exists as a version of you vibrating at a specific frequency that you have simply not yet stabilized into. The question then becomes, how do you stabilize into a new frequency? It begins with the body. Most people attempt to shift their mindset while ignoring their physiology, but your body is the broadcasting tower of your energy. If your nervous system is dysregulated, it will override any new thought you try to implant. The real shift occurs when your nervous system becomes coherent with the reality you are manifesting. This means you must teach your body how to feel safe in unfamiliar emotions like peace, expansion, and joy. Here is a practice. Instead of trying to affirm your way into your future self, feel your way into it. Close your eyes and bring to mind the version of you who already lives in your desired reality. What is their emotional tone? Is it calm, confident, grateful? Bring that emotional tone into your body now, not as a performance, but as a way to train your nervous system to stabilize at that frequency. This is not pretending. It is rehearsing a new way of being until your system recognizes it as safe. Even 5 seconds of feeling genuinely different can begin to interrupt the old loop. 5 seconds of coherence is more powerful than 5 hours of mental struggle. Second, observe without collapse. Become aware of your old patterns without identifying with them. When an old fear arises, instead of panicking, simply watch it. When you notice a reactive thought, pause and ask, does this come from the version of me I'm shifting out of, or the one I'm shifting into? This moment of observation is the bridge. The more you can witness without collapsing into reaction, the more space you create for a different signal to emerge. Third, disengage from urgency. The quantum field is timeless. Desperation signals lack. Slow down. You do not need to chase what is already yours in the field. You need to become a match for it. Reality shifts not when you try harder, but when your frequency no longer supports the old. A powerful change is to stop asking for proof. When you look for evidence too soon, you signal doubt. Instead, treat the lack of evidence as a test of your new embodiment. Smile when it does not look like it is working, because that is when you know you are anchoring a deeper frequency. Manifestation is often not about getting more, but about removing interference. The noise, tension, and old expectations that bind you to what no longer fits. The more you remove, the more naturally the new signal comes through. You have come this far. You have seen how the loop sustains itself, how your subconscious maintains the patterns that keep your reality on repeat, and how your body holds on to the emotional signatures of your past self. You have learned how the quantum field does not resist your desires, but faithfully reflects the frequency you consistently broadcast. Not what you want, but what you are. And now, you are standing on the edge of a new reality. The threshold is not out there in your future. It is right here, in this moment, as you decide to embody a different frequency, to move beyond reaction and repetition, and to become the creator of your reality, not an unconscious participant in its replay. Let's be clear, the quantum shift is not a one-time event. It is not a dramatic explosion that forever changes everything in an instant, although it can sometimes feel that way. More often, it is subtle, quiet, an accumulation of micro-decisions and micro-shifts, tiny moments where you choose to observe instead of react, to soften instead of tense, to trust instead of panic. Each time you choose presence over programming, alignment over urgency, and coherence over chaos, you are shifting, you are stepping out of the loop and into the field of infinite possibilities where new realities can collapse into form, not through effort, but through resonance. This is the secret most people never realize. Your future is not something you chase. It is something you tune into. It is a frequency you stabilize in so consistently and confidently that the field has no choice but to organize itself around your new signal. This is what it means to live as your quantum self, to recognize that you are not separate from the version of you who already inhabits the reality you desire. You are entangled with that version right now, across the field. The only question is which signal you are reinforcing with your thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and choices. The loop ends when you stop feeding it, when you stop rehearsing the same inner conversations, entertaining the same doubts, and repeating the self-concepts that no longer fit. The shift happens when you allow those old patterns to dissolve, not through force, but through the power of non-resistance. And here is the most beautiful part. You do not have to do this perfectly. The field does not require perfection, only consistency, only coherence, only the willingness to return again and again to the signal of your future self, even when your external reality has not yet caught up. Especially then, because that is the true test. Not whether you can shift when everything is easy, but whether you can hold your frequency when there is no evidence yet that anything is changing. Can you keep broadcasting the signal of abundance when your bank account still reflects scarcity? Can you stay aligned with love when your relationships still feel turbulent? Can you trust the shift when the loop is still visible in your external world? This is where most people give up. They interpret the lack of immediate results as a sign that it is not working, that they are not good enough, or that manifestation is a lie. But you know better now. You know that the field responds to your embodied frequency, not your momentary frustration. You know that the shift happens first in the invisible and only later in the visible. You know that the reality you are stepping into does not need to be chased. It needs to be received. So as we close this journey together, are you willing to keep broadcasting the new signal even when the old loop tries to pull you back? Are you willing to walk as the person who has already shifted even before the world reflects it to you? Because that is the only real question left. The practices and theories all point to this. Will you choose coherence over chaos? Will you choose to stabilize in the frequency of your future self, not just as a practice, but as a way of being? If you will, then you have already shifted more than you realize. The field is already responding. It may take time for all the pieces to rearrange, but the shift has already begun in you. So breathe that in. Let it settle. Let the knowing of your power deepen, not as an abstract idea, but as an embodied truth. You are not a victim of your reality. You are its creator.